You're listening to the Hunt Suburbia podcast. I'm your host, Pat Guyette. Big bucks I've been dreaming often, every night till I'm in a coffin. Vermont woods to the burbs of Boston, I'm looking for a tree to get lost in. Crisp mornings, little dust in the snow. Quality time, just me and my bow. Fall evenings, I know just where to go for some quality times for me and my bow. It's just me and my bow. All right, back with another episode of Hunt Suburbia. First episode in 2021, which is year 2 for us. Really enjoying doing this. Can't wait to see what 2021 brings. The first interview this year is with John Gioia. He's a completely new hunter this year. Well, last year, 2020. And he was able to kill a buck in his first year. He went out there, complete greenhorn. Didn't quite know what he was doing. He said he learned from podcasts. But as you'll hear in the interview, you know, he really was pretty basic on knowledge on hunting. But he got out there. He was determined to get something, and he ended up getting it done. He learned something every single time he went out. He made some adjustments, and he was extremely excited. I think he's going to be hooked for life. So we hope you guys enjoy this one. John Gioia, let's get into the interview. All right, so we're back with another episode of Hunt Suburbia, and we're switching gears a little bit. We got a rookie hunter, a newbie to the sport, which we love, and which is one of the reasons we started this podcast, is get more people into it. John, how do you pronounce your last name?
It's Gioia.
John Gioia. And when did you start hunting, John?
I started hunting this year. I've been working on starting hunting for several years now.
So what do you mean by that?
Well,
you've been studying, watching videos, but not taking the step to...
Exactly. Yeah. It's been a goal of mine for several years, maybe for 4 or 5 years now too. It was 4 or 5 years ago that I really decided I wanted to learn how to hunt. I think I took my hunter safety in 2017. It took a while to even get that done.
Yep.
And I've actually moved around a couple times the past few years, so it was just a bit of a challenge with that.
Were you moving around just Mass or like around the country?
We lived in Maine for a short period,
Yep.
and that's where I took my hunter safety, and that was going to be a great spot to start learning. And then we ended up moving down here. I'm originally from Boston.
Yep.
So then the move down here set things back a little bit, and seemed like there was always an excuse kind of to... Summer came around, and then it felt too late to figure things out for fall.
Uh-huh.
But I think this year with the pandemic,
I was going to say,
home.
so is that what kind of... You're like, all right, I got to get out in the woods and just do this.
I think that really helped, and I was home
time.
a lot, and I found that it was a great opportunity to get into bow hunting. So I decided in April or May, I'm going to do it this year. And I've been working from home, and I just had the perfect setup to practice with the bow in the yard while
Yep.
working from home. And I just thought, let's get going with that.
So when you decided that you were going to get into hunting, I want to talk about first how you decided that, like what brought those feelings on. But then were you always going to get into bow hunting, or is it because you live near Boston and you needed, bow is the most accessible hunting weapon that's going to get you the most places to hunt? Like when you were in Maine, were you thinking when you're going to get into hunting, it was going to be with a rifle, or?
I think I didn't really know. When I was in Maine, I didn't really know what it was going to be. And I actually didn't really know even this spring. I was still kind of thinking about it.
Yeah.
Shotgun or bow. I mean, I was kind of interested in both, but I knew I should really just choose one, at least at the start.
Yeah.
And then I realized a couple things, like the hunting season is a lot longer for bow.
Yep.
So that right off the bat almost made the decision in and of itself for me.
And you get all the rut.
Exactly,
with the bow.
Yeah, the pre-rut time,
Yep.
October, and through past, the end of shotgun season. So that was a big draw. And then I started thinking, I live in Boston, so I'm like, where am I going to practice with a shotgun? I know there are ways to do it, but I was thinking like join a club or something.
Gun clubs and stuff.
Yeah, and how often am I going to get to a range? But we have some space in the backyard where I could at least practice, 12 to 15 yard shots with the bow.
There you go. So this is real urban. Anybody who's listening from a city, there's no excuse to not, find 12 to 15 yards and set up your bow range.
Yeah,
that's great. And before we go any more, too deep into it, I want to let people know John was successful this year. He got a buck, and it was your first year hunting, right?
First year, yep.
First year hunting, got a buck. So I wanted to bring him on so he can, talk about that experience. Give anybody who might be in his shoes, who's new to hunting and hasn't killed a buck yet, show some validation. Like, right, it can be done. Your first year, you can get it done. It can take you 3 years, whatever. But he's going to share kind of how he went through that, and maybe he learned some things, and he picked up a few tips or pointers somewhere, and that helped him get there. But I mean, it's not easy to kill a buck in your first year. It's definitely, I'm sure there's a little bit of luck involved. There always is with hunting.
Definitely.
But, you did it, so that's awesome. And
thank you.
Let's talk about that experience. Like, let's get right into the hunt first.
Yeah. Sure. I'd love to.
And it was in Blue Hills, you said, right?
Yes.
You got one of the permits to Blue Hills.
Yep.
Before my wife and I moved out here, we lived in Quincy for a couple of years, right across the street from Blue Hills. So, and that was even really before I got super into bow hunting. So I never applied for that hunt, but I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, that was a really cool thing for me because I had kind of been focusing my scouting and initial hunts this year in the Zone 11, Southeast Mass. I had gone down to Carver, Foxborough and Bridgewater and those areas, which were great spots. But it was the logistics of getting down there, trying to do a morning hunt or an afternoon and working at the same time. It was just, it was a big trip. And then just to get down there for a scout. So when I saw the Blue Hills open up, that was pretty exciting because I can be from my door to the trailhead in about 10 minutes.
Yep.
Which is just really cool to have that opportunity to hunt deer. Basically, some parts of the Blue Hills is actually in Boston.
Yeah. And Quincy's no suburb. I mean, it's a city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So that was really exciting, and I guess I lucked out and got a permit because they did fill their quota. I don't know how many people put in for it. But so not only did I luck out that way, but they split it up into 2 zones, and there's a handful of areas within each zone.
Yep.
And large parts of the Blue Hills, there's no hunting in it. And I got the zone that I was hoping to get, the Foul Meadow section of the Blue Hills, which is a really cool kind of wooded wetland meadow with just fantastic deer habitat.
Yeah, I heard that place had the highest deer density out of all the Blue Hills.
Yes. If you look at their deer management plans, the state DCR publishes their report every year, and the Foul Meadow is always the highest. It was way up there at around 120 a square mile.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And then it's down, but still the highest.
So how when did you get drawn for that? And was it like September or so, in the summertime sometime? And then
it was towards the end of October.
Oh, really?
So I had already been out on some hunts.
All right. So that wasn't the first time you were in the woods.
No, I had been out on a few, but the draw was late October, and so it's been the past 2 weeks.
So it's not much scouting you really get in before you go in to hunt there.
Not really, and that's it's been the past 2 weeks, and then starting tomorrow will be the final week of the hunt. So it's 3 weeks, 11 days total. It's just Monday to Thursday. I found out I got the permit and basically had I think it was maybe 10 days to 2 weeks to do scouting. And I got out there in a couple days. First day I finally got out there to scout, I left myself like an hour of daylight. So I was kind of just doing broad scouting, kind of walking the trails as fast as I could just to GPS some points and figure out where I want to come back later days. But there's just so many deer trails out there. So I did come back the Saturday before the hunt opened for kind of my second day of scouting. And my goal that day was to find a spot and get the stand up and get it ready for the following Monday.
What kind of stand are you using?
I'm using a Lone Wolf Assault with the climbing sticks.
So is it a hang on or is it like a...
Yeah, it's a hang-on stand.
Yep.
With the 4 climbing sticks. So it's a sweet setup. It's really lightweight and easy to work with and carry around. So I got out there and I went back to a few of my spots that I had found on that first day and got on some really good sign. You know, I'm still really learning how to recognize all this stuff, and I still feel like I think I've at this point found one rub, which I didn't even find until after I killed this buck. But I'm still just trying to learn how to find all that stuff. But
what about scrapes? Did you find any scrapes?
So that was one thing. I found some great trails, and the area is like really thick with brambly, thorny stuff. So
that's what you want to see.
And I was finding these trails through that. So and finding lots of pellets everywhere. And it was the previous week, like it seemed like all the leaves had fallen in that 1 week, and I was finding pellets on top of all that. So I thought that was a really good sign. I'm like, these deer are here very recently. And I found like this just great looking spot in the middle of this really thick kind of brambly stuff. It was just this clearing, kind of like this circular area with some good trees on the edge of it. A lot of these trails kind of converged on it. There were certainly lots of little piles of pellets in there, and some of the branches had been browsed on. So I'm thinking, like, this looks great.
Yeah.
And sounds
good to me.
I had also decided, like, I really don't want to take a shot this year from more than 20 yards out, because I practiced up to 25 yards, and I said I'm going to...
Hey, you said you practiced 12 to 15.
I did learn how to open the gate to my yard and extend the shot a little bit.
There you go.
But 20 was like my limit, hopefully less than that. And just kind of the way that this clearing was, even if I saw a deer on the other side of it, it wasn't going to be more than a 20-yard shot. So I felt just great about this spot. So not having a whole lot of experience about how to evaluate these things anymore, I figured, why not? It's getting close to dark. I'm going to throw the stand up here, and this will be my spot at least for the first week. That was kind of my plan, was to move it each week.
So you were planning on hunting every single day?
Most days.
That you were allowed to hunt in there?
Yeah, I was planning on taking the first 2 days totally off of work, and then it was close enough that I could at least get out for a sunrise and or a sunset sit every day. So I got the stand up there, and it's maybe 3:30 or so. And of course the hunt hasn't opened yet. I don't have my bow or anything, but I figure I'll just sit here and enjoy the sunset, see if I see anything. And that time came and went. It was getting pretty dark, and I'm coming down from the stand, and sure enough, I hear something come from behind me. I turn around, and it's this deer. He's like slowly walking in on one of the trails that I had just walked. And I'm like, have my arms around the tree, coming down, standing on my climbing sticks. I'm like, holy crap.
Is that the first deer you'd seen in the woods?
It was the first deer I had seen from a tree stand, I guess. I had seen one earlier that day. During this, I was out there for most of the day. But he came in, and I didn't know what to do. I'm like, is he gonna? I wasn't really practicing my scent control that day. I just had regular jeans and a jacket on, and I didn't know if he was gonna wind me or see me. So I'm trying to like position myself behind the tree as he comes into the area. But he came right into like the middle of this clearing, and he did make a scrape.
Really? Right in front of you?
Right in front of me, which I thought was really cool. He's like scraping at the ground, and then he did that a couple times, and then he nibbled on the branches right there that I had noticed that were kind of browsed. And that's like 12 yards away from me. And then he starts walking straight toward the tree that I'm on. I'm like, oh man, what's the end of this here? And he got pretty much within, I'd say, 10 or 15 feet. I don't know if he smelled me or not. I thought if he had smelled me, he might like run away or something, but he kind of had his head in the air and just like he was looking right at me. But anyway, he turned around.
Was he licking his nose? Do you remember?
I can't remember.
Because they'll put their head up in the air like that, and they'll lick their nose like that and turn their head. And when they do that, they're opening up the receptors they have in their nose more. When they lick it, they can smell better. So when they sense something, or they have the slightest whiff of something, they'll see them lift their head up like that and start licking their nose and turning it around, because it really enhances their smell, and their sense of smell is incredible. It's 100,000 times better than ours or something crazy like that. But yeah.
That's interesting. I kind of remember he had his head in the air, so it looked like he was trying to smell a little better. So he definitely could have been licking his face too. And then he just sort of sauntered off.
Was it a good sized buck, or how big was he?
I couldn't really tell. It was getting pretty dark. So, and my lingo here is I don't. I thought he was like a 4-pointer. Yeah. I don't know if you call that like a fork or something, but
4-pointer. Some people call them forkies.
Yeah.
Fork
okay.
horns,
So
but yeah,
that's what he looked like to me. Again, not having seen too many deer in the woods, I didn't really know. Like, is he like? Was a bigger?
Now did
deer?
Did you get excited? Was your adrenaline pumping there just having that experience, or?
Yeah, totally. Because I was like thinking, wow, this is so cool. I've found this spot, and now this is such great validation that not only is he coming through, but he's kind of doing these territorial things. Yeah. So this really seems like, I don't know, it just seems like his spot, and it seems like this is a good sign that he's probably going to come back here.
And at that point, you're probably going, why the hell did it take me so long to get into hunting? This is pretty fun. I don't even have my bow in my hand.
Yeah, so that was sweet. So I just kind of stayed on the tree there as he left. Yep. Waited another 5 minutes, and then just got down and went home. Spooked a few deer on the way out. I'm like,
there's 120 per square mile there.
Yeah. So I was taking more GPS points on the way out. Yeah. So then I was back on Monday, the opening day of the hunt, and I sat in the stand sunrise to sunset and didn't see a thing. I was in there, I think, 2 or 3 minutes before legal shooting.
I like that you had to suffer a little bit. You're not telling me that you got that buck in your first sit there.
No, and that was my second full day sit of the year. So
also that shows me that you're determined a little more than some of the guys that I've got into hunting. One of them, I got into hunting 10 years ago, a decade ago. He didn't do a full day sit until this year, 10 years. He would go out and he would hunt in the morning, and then he'd come back and take a nap and have lunch. And all that stuff's fine if that's what you want to do. But if you want to kill deer, you got to be in the woods and you got to sit. And the fact that you already are doing full day sits, that's awesome. That's half the battle.
I mean, I was tempted for sure to get down on, and it's so close to home. I figured I could be down and home in like 45 minutes, grab some lunch or something, but I was just nervous I would miss something. And the other thing, this is kind of one of the reasons I really got into hunting, is I just love being outside. And even if I don't see any deer, I mean,
are you a skier? Because I can see your hat.
Yeah.
I love skiing. I got into skiing a few years ago. I love it too. Yeah, outdoors, just being in the outdoors,
just being outside, and like sitting in a tree stand is a pretty cool way to spend some time, whether it's an hour or a whole day.
A couple years ago, I was thinking to myself that there's a lot of people who thought like you that way, where a tree stand doesn't have to be just for hunters. Not that I want to see a million recreational tree standers out there that are just going out for their mental health and reading a book and observing wildlife. But hey, that would be pretty fun. You don't have to go out and hunt. There could be a line of tree stands that are geared to throw on your backpack and just for hikers, Yeah. Go out there and climb up into a tree, and it's an amazing view, and
it's a terrific way to experience
it feels good.
The woods and get up. Yeah, just see it from a different perspective. Really awesome. I love that idea. I've been thinking about, like, with some of my friends who aren't into hunting, saying, like, just try getting up in my tree stand one day.
It's great for mental health,
it.
man. Just clearing your mind. Like, get out into the woods and observe a swamp or something, you know?
Yeah.
It's cool. A lot of people will think that's boring as hell, but I mean, hey.
So that's, that it just.
So what was the singular thought that you had do you remember where you were when you were just like, I want to get into hunting? What was it that like spurned that? Were you listening to Joe? Some people like listen to Joe Rogan and like that kind of triggered it, or
I'd say I don't know if it was a one specific moment, but it was just a number of things over time that different experiences and thought processes that just drew me more and more to the idea of being a hunter. I guess, like I said, I love being outside, and I've always loved being outside, and whether it's just hiking or backpacking, camping, getting on the water, canoe trips or skiing, like we were saying. I've skied for a number of years, backcountry skiing, the opportunity to hunt.
Some people do that. They go to the top of the mountain, put your skis on, and ski down to a good spot to hunt.
That would
sounds
be cool. Awesome.
That
sounds really
you
cool.
got to do and report back on that.
The opportunity to hunt just presented this chance to really kind of deepen those experiences and just kind of add to the level of complexity of an outdoor experience and and intensity too. The outcome of your outdoor experience isn't like just getting to the top of a mountain or skiing a sweet run or being exhausted after a bike ride. It's harvesting your deer.
You're bringing home meat.
Yeah.
You're taking an animal's life, which is a gravity. It's
yeah.
So there's a lot to it. Did you ever have venison before?
I had, yeah.
Before, so you already know you'd like venison.
Yeah, a number of times, friends or my brother got into hunting here a couple of years ahead of me, and he has harvested a couple venison.
Venison steaks.
Sorry, a couple deer.
So
past couple of years.
So that's what it was.
It,
Your brother had been doing it, telling you a little bit about the experience, probably, and then that probably helped you trigger into.
Oh, definitely. That's more recently. He and I sort of had been talking about it a lot over the past several years.
Does he live around here too?
He lives in the Catskills in New York.
Oh yeah, cool. That's another great place to go. Yeah.
So, and we had been talking about it for a while. How we both had this desire to really learn how to hunt, and he's been on quite a fast-paced trajectory. And
so dad didn't hunt, mom didn't hunt.
No.
Yep, it wasn't in your childhood at all.
Not at all. I mean, they were certainly great at giving us and helping us have outdoor experiences, but growing up outside of Boston, like hunting wasn't even.
Yeah.
I didn't even.
You don't even
I
think
had no
that there
idea
would be an
that
opportunity.
People are hunting in Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
It just wasn't on my radar at all.
Yep. And like I said, I moved here 10 years ago to Boston. I lived in Boston. I lived in Somerville and Southie and Quincy for like 9 of those years, and then just recently moved out here. And those 8-9 years when I was living in the cities, I just never registered to me either that there would be any hunting opportunity in Massachusetts. I was still very much into hunting, and I loved it, and I looked forward to it every year, but I would just drive back to my Vermont camp every weekend for the 3 rifle weekends and the 2 muzzleloader weekends, and that's how I would get my hunting. And then I realized, like, I can't, especially once I started dating my wife, I'm like, I can't go that far every time I want to hunt. It's too much time away, and we're gonna start a family. I gotta hunt close to home now. So I started looking into it, and there's really good opportunity even around Boston. But in all of Massachusetts, it's a great hunting state.
Yep.
All right, Happy New Year, everybody. We're gonna do the raffle for the big New Year's raffle, 6 prizes tonight on Instagram Live. So make sure you're following Hunt Suburbia on Instagram Live. Even if you didn't enter the raffle, you want to see me look like an idiot and do a live drawing, tune in at 6, and we'll pick the names of the winners. There were about 6 or 7. I haven't done the final tally yet. People who entered the raffle. I think you guys bought 50 or 60 bottles of wine, somewhere in that range. So you got a high probability of winning something pretty good at 6 p.m. tonight. Tune in there. And if you don't have Instagram Live, don't worry. I'll let you know that you won via text or email or however you sent me those receipts. But just wanted to get that out of the way, and we will see you tonight at 6 p.m. All right, so first day, you had a morning full day sit and saw nothing.
Full
what
day
happened
sit,
the second day?
Saw nothing. I had been planning on coming back for the full day on Tuesday, and I got home and I'm like, I don't know, I'm sore, I'm tired. I don't know if I want to go back for the full day tomorrow. But I did go back for maybe 4 or 5 hours in the afternoon. I basically did a half day up there. And again, it was pretty much just like the first day. Didn't see or hear anything. Heard a lot of woodpeckers, chipmunks that every time I hear something, I think it's a deer coming in.
Yep. Hey, and as you get more experience, that doesn't really go away. I still think every squirrel's a deer.
Oh man, yeah, it's like, oh, what's that?
Yeah.
So then the other funny thing that happened on Monday, actually, during the full day sit, is my brother he texted me from his tree stand, and he had just sat down. He was getting in a sunset sit. So it was maybe 3:30 or so, and he sends a message, a little picture of where his stand was. And half an hour later, another message from him. I just got one. I just shot a deer, and
awesome.
Looks like she's dead.
Yep. He's bow hunting too?
Yeah.
Yep.
And of course, I was really psyched for him, and it was so we texted a bunch there for a couple minutes. But then I'm sitting there thinking, like, man, he just sat there for a half an hour. I've been here all day. So yeah, then on the way home the next day for me, I called him. So this was Tuesday afternoon, and we were just kind of chatting about my hunt that night. And I mentioned I might give it a rest the next day, just give the area some space and not go back. Maybe they're scenting me or something. And he encouraged me. He said, just go back. I think it's better just to get in the stand rather than just stay home.
Yeah.
Plus, this is a really heavily trafficked area. I know you said that their scent is so good. So even though I'm only like 50 yards off the trail, maybe their sense of smell is good enough to know that I'm 50 yards off the trail and not on it. But still, that was another thing we talked about. It's such a popular area. They're probably used to seeing people. And
absolutely.
And he said, like Monday, even if you can only get out there for the half hour, 45 minutes before sunset, you should do it. So I pretty much got my full work day in the next day from home, and hit the trailhead at the Blue Hills at around 3:00. And I was it's not a long walk. I was in the tree stand around 3:15, 3:20. And sure enough, with like 15 minutes after sitting down, and I said, since I was only there for a very short window that day, I said, I'm just going to sit completely still. I'm going to just be as quiet as I can.
That's another big key.
Yeah. Because the full day sit, I'm standing up and sitting down and get my phone out. And I said, I'm just going to be as still as I can. And 15 minutes later, I start hearing the footsteps behind me. And clearly this time it's not a chipmunk or a woodpecker.
Yeah.
That is a large animal. Really hard to resist the temptation to turn and look at it.
Yeah.
That's another thing my brother had said happened to him a couple times, and then they just busted him and ran away. So I'm thinking, if it's coming my way, I don't need to see it. If it comes my way, it's going to come this way. If it doesn't, so be it. And a couple things I learned in this moment. Well, I didn't learn them in this moment, but I learned from telling people afterwards. I had my bow hanging on a hook, and I didn't know that I was supposed to have an arrow knocked, which it's really funny when I tell people that. And they're like, what are you thinking? So
it was still in the quiver.
It was in the quiver, yep. And I had it was a pretty cold day, so I had these big, thick gloves on. I didn't want to shoot with them. So I know the deer's coming in, and I'm starting to tremble and get I'm like shaking.
Yep, that's
and
awesome.
all I can think of is like, okay, gloves.
Got the
take
fever.
those off. My backpack is hanging right there, so my gloves in the backpack.
He's coming from behind you at this point?
Sort of over my left shoulder.
Okay.
So he's coming from the way that he walked out the other day.
That's good. And your bow's on this side, so
bow's on the right side.
When they're coming from the same side, that can be an issue, because then you really got to wait for them to turn away before you can lift your bow off, But you had the tree blocking you, so you can do all that stuff.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Right. But I was nervous. I'm like, I've got to do all these movements now. I mean, this guy is going to grab the bow and then get my quiver and then pop the arrow out of it. Get that all set up. And then for a split second, I thought about taking the shot from a seated position because I'd practiced that a very little bit. Mm-hmm. But then I just decided, like, this is not how I've been practicing, really. I've got to get into my comfortable position. I stood up, and he's coming in, like, he's not running or anything, but it's happening quickly. Like, he comes in, and he's walking across the clearing, and he goes right to the spot where he made the scrape, and he's basically doing the same thing, and that is like a broadside 12-yard shot.
Real close. That's awesome.
And yeah, so that's when I'm standing and I go to draw back and my elbow hits the tree and I'm just kind of really shaking and finding
you got your gloves off, right?
Gloves are off, yep. So I shift a little bit to get into normal position. Elbow is all the way back. And for a split second, I think like I can't do this. I feel like I'm shaking too much. It's gonna be a bad shot. But I am able to just steady myself for a second. And it was all lined up. And yeah, I mean, I was not expecting this, but there was like so much blood right away. Mm-hmm. And
you had a good shot.
Like, that seemed like a good thing. And he jumped a couple times and sort of pranced off, just 2 or 3 times maybe. And then he stood there. Then he ran a little bit and then just started walking and sort of stumbling and fell down. All maybe 2-3 minutes, and he was on the ground.
And so what did that feel like? Like, what were you were shaking as he was coming in? Or were you shaking even more after the shot? And with me, and normally like that's when the trembling will set in for me. Now it's like after the experience, like I take the shot, then I'll start really going like the adrenaline kicks in and start shaking.
I think it was maybe harder to tell because I could really tell when I was holding the bow and when I was drawn back because I had my sights and they were shaking. Yeah. After I took the shot, I was just I think I was sort of in shock and I was trying to watch him too. I was like really excited as well, and I was nervous because heard about guys having to really track their deer or losing sight of them. So I was kind of worried about that a little bit too, but he didn't get too far. And once I saw him fall down, it was just really kind of thrilling experience. And immediately I had to text my wife and my brother and a couple friends.
Yeah, I'm shaking right now.
Do all that stuff. Yeah. My brother called me right away.
That's great. Yeah, you still get to experience that moment with him, even though he's not there. On the phone.
Yep, that was really cool.
So then did you get down right away? Because you saw him there laying, right?
I did.
You saw him go down.
Yeah, and I had heard you got to wait at least 45 minutes, maybe even more. But I told my brother I saw him fall down, and I've been watching the spot. It's not too far away. He said, "Yeah, just get down there."
If you're going to do that, reload another arrow as you're walking up to him and walk up slowly. In the future, right? You probably didn't do that, but reload another arrow, bring your bow with you, and walk up slowly because they might get back up. Or if they're still alive and they're just laying down, they fell down and he's still alive, you can give them another shot to quickly end its life,
Yep.
So you're walking up to it. And
I came down from the stand and went to check out. It occurred to me that the arrow might be in the ground, so I went and it had gone through him and was stuck in the ground there. Mm-hmm. And I still wasn't really. I guess I was still trying to put everything together, but then I saw the arrow had gone through and was covered in blood. And now I think I heard this on one of your shows, but now I realize what all the little kind of bubbles they had shown up on the arrow. Yeah. Maybe a sign of it passing through the lungs.
Yep. That's what you want to see there. Double lung shot.
Yeah. So
sounds like you didn't go too far, so I'm sure it was a double lung.
Yep. I did follow. There was the blood trail that I followed because getting down on the ground, a little disorienting. Trying to figure out where he is back in kind of the thick brambles. But yeah, it was maybe a minute or two that I had to follow this little blood trail.
Yep. He did not go far. Didn't suffer.
Yep. Called up a good friend of mine who had taken a deer pretty much in the same spot on the Blue Hills hunt 2 years ago. And he lives like even closer to the area than I do. He was so excited. He was out there within about a half an hour.
Yeah.
So that was awesome. He was there.
So what happened? Like you get up to it. Was it emotional for you to walk up to the dead animal? I mean, this will be the first time you've taken a large animal's life, any animal's life probably, right?
Yeah.
So what was it like walking up to it?
Definitely. It was, I definitely got right down and on my knees and got right up next to it and put my hand on its kind of like on its neck, on its face. And, his eyes were open. I don't know if I was imagining this or if it was true, but I felt like he was sort of taking his last breaths. I very well could have just imagined that, but
it's very possible.
Seemed like there was some slight movement. I don't know if they were breaths or just the last kind of blood movement or whatever. But yeah, it was an emotional moment. I kind of just thanked the deer and thanked the landscape and made a promise that I would do everything I could to honor him and his life and that particular area. So
yeah, there's an emotional roller. It can be a roller coaster, right? You get up and you're so excited, and it's the most adrenaline you ever felt, and your body's shaking, and then you can walk up to it, and you should feel some remorse, or you shouldn't, whatever. People feel different things, but it goes from like the super high to some remorse and some sadness, and then it's like a high again. Your buddy shows up, and congratulating you. You guys probably drag it out together and all that stuff, right? So. That's the whole reason I got hooked on it from a young age is just that experience. There's nothing else that you can do that I found that can give you that experience over and over again. It's that same emotional roller coaster.
Yep.
Yeah,
totally. And just the opportunity to really interact with the landscape and to really kind of take part in the ecosystem, and the ecology, and to learn so much about a particular piece of land, a particular area, a particular animal, and their movements and their behaviors and the signs they make.
And then you get really healthy, delicious, lean meat out of it.
Yeah.
It's like you don't have to go to the grocery store and buy a side of beef that you have no idea where it was raised and what happened to it, whatever. You know everything about how this animal died. Every meal you have is an intimate experience because it's going to take you back to that day. Every time you're eating them, so
that's another big reason why I got into it. It makes the act of eating just a much more present much more of a practice in my life. It's not just eating; it's the whole process of the hunt, harvesting the animal, saving the meat, figuring out how to cook it.
The work that went into it.
Cooking it and then eating it, sharing it with friends and family. That's really special.
Yeah, that's all why we do it. So what happened with, did you gut it yourself? Did your friend help you? Did you watch a YouTube video? Like with that I'm sure for people who have never harvested a deer, like that's like one of probably the scariest things. Like, all right, what the hell do I do now?
That's funny because I had been thinking about that process and being more kind of worried about that than
and scared about it probably
like that's what I kept coming back to before I had done this is like, what am I going to do if I actually kill one? So I studied, just watched a ton of videos, and every video you watch is different. You pick up some different techniques. I did take a class with Mass Wildlife before last hunting season. They do field dressing classes. They had maybe 30 people there. They had 2 road-killed deer. So you stood around the deer with a group of 10 or 15 other people.
That's cool. I didn't know they did that.
It was cool. Everyone that wanted to got a chance to do something. So that was cool. I had at least gone through that and seen that. And then my buddy who came out, he had field dressed that one deer that he had taken almost in the same spot. So between the two of us, ton of YouTube videos and 2 experiences.
Yeah. And it's always very nice to have someone just to hold the legs open, you know?
Yeah.
I had to do my buck by myself this year, and you can get it done as long as, you get into a good position and, but sometimes the legs don't cooperate and they're flopping all over the place and it's really hard, but it's nice to have someone to hold the legs open while you're doing the work.
That was really helpful. Yeah. That's basically what he did. And we were both just sort of figuring out together.
Yeah.
But we knew that.
And also don't be afraid. It's not, if you kill 30 or 40 deer, you're probably really good at it and it's easy and everything comes out clean. But I still don't, I'm not the greatest at it. It's not meant to be a surgery,
Mm-hmm.
Just get in there and cut along the back and feel along and, you're just pulling and ripping stuff out sometimes. Don't rip the wrong stuff. Make sure that, his urine sac and his anus and all that stuff comes out without being ripped because that can spoil some meat. But the stuff up, his vitals and stuff, just get along the edge and pull it out. It doesn't have to be super clean.
Yeah.
So if you're listening and you're worried about that part, it doesn't have to be perfect, Get all that stuff out of there. Don't puncture the stomach either. Because the stomach, you open that up and there's all the paunch that can get into the meat, but it just smells awful. And it's not a fun experience puncturing that. But so just avoid that. Avoid puncturing the urine and, any of the, I don't know what they even call that, the anus, anus sphincter,
any of the intestines.
That's all that stuff, right?
We kind of we knew the red flags, don't stick your knife in those few spots.
Yep.
And then the general idea is
carve up your tenderloin.
Top to bottom, you're just getting everything out of there.
Yeah.
So I definitely learned that you should bring more. I didn't have any paper towels or any sort of little washcloths or something to even sort of do any cleaning in the field. I was just putting.
I never
bloody
bring that stuff out either, but I guess you can. But usually you can find some kind of a water source nearby, and even if it's just a puddle, and just wash your hands off there, wash your knife off a little bit, and then when you get home, you can clean your knife and throw all your stuff in the laundry. And some people like to wear the gloves that go up to your shoulders too. That makes it cleaner if you want, but I don't mind.
Yeah, we didn't have any of that.
Yeah, if you're gonna kill him, might as well get some of his blood on you anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, it was great having him to help to just kind of problem solve the field dressing together.
Yep.
And then of course for the drag, that was amazing to have a hand because I think it was about a mile. Completely flat, nice, wide open trail.
So it was like a 15-minute walk in?
Yeah, about. But I just wanted to see what it would be like if I was dragging it by myself, and that would have taken a long time.
Now, do you know how much it weighed? And you haven't told anybody what it was yet. How many points there was
on it?
Yeah,
it was a 6-pointer.
Nice.
We never weighed it, but we estimated it to be about 150 pounds.
Mm-hmm. Now, I saw the picture and I couldn't tell if it was a 6 or an 8 or what. Is it 4 points on one side and 2 on the other? Yeah.
Yep.
So that's unique.
Yeah, that was cool. So yeah, he had the 2 points were on the ground as he was lying on his side, and the 4 points were in the air. So at first, that's what I thought he was an 8-pointer. I didn't even realize it until my friend showed up and we were taking the pictures and everything, and I noticed the non-symmetrical antlers.
Yeah, that's cool.
So yeah, and then we took him to my buddy's house. He's got a tree in the yard, and we hung him up and kind of cleaned it up real nice. I ended up taking him to a butcher the next day, and the butcher had asked that we check for ticks and remove those. There were a ton of ticks on
Really?
them. Yeah.
Wow, I never heard of that before.
I don't know.
That's a lot of freaking extra work.
I mentioned that that I was in the Blue Hills, and that put up a red flag, I think. There are. I I
had tons of ticks on my deer this year too. But butchers normally, they've got their clothes treated and they know how to defend against ticks, and they'll get the hide off pretty quickly. You want to strip the hide.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe he had
Interesting.
he mentioned having Lyme or having an experience with someone in his family. So
Yeah.
But yeah, we cleaned it up real good, and
How many ticks did you pull off of him?
probably 30 to 40.
Yeah.
And some live ones too that were just crawling on him. So I'm sure I missed a bunch. But they're all concentrated on the ears and like the back legs. And then just tossed them in the car, and I left them in my car overnight, so I could just get up early and bring them down to the butcher in the morning.
So you brought him back into Boston?
Yeah.
You're probably the only car in the city of Boston with a dead deer in the back, and nobody knew about it.
Yeah, it actually, I put my driveway is on a little slant, kind of going down to the road, so I parked the car. So I don't know, I had it so. I guess it didn't matter which way I parked, but anyway, I parked it so the trunk was facing towards the road, and I had it all wrapped up in the tarp, and I had to, for some reason, I had to open the trunk in the morning, and some people were walking by. It looked a little weird with some thing wrapped up in the.
Did they see it?
No, but I don't know. They were watching me fumble around in my trunk.
Thought you had a dead body in there? Which you did.
Yeah.
It was a deer.
So, and then the butcher got it carved up, and I was able to go back that night to pick it up.
So a couple of things just from what you were saying. I like to wear gloves like these, just like a thin wool.
Yep.
And even sometimes cut the fingers off, maybe just your thumb and this finger, so you can use if you want to use your phone for something, whatever, just cut the tips off. And hand warmers in your pocket. It's just as good as a real thick glove. Just having like a thin wool and hand warmers in your pocket, you'll be really toasty, and then you've got much better movement with your hands. You don't have to worry about taking your gloves off and all that stuff, and it's much closer to how you practice, barehanded, having something thin.
That's a great call. That's funny, actually. I got a pair right there.
Yep, nice.
Yeah.
I did bring my my big ski gloves into the woods. On real cold mornings, I'll bring it in as I'm walking in, and if I'm going to use my climber, because the climber it's going to be really cold metal, so I'll like wear a big thick pair of ski gloves or something, and then I'll just take them out, put them in my pack, and switch to the thin stuff. And then you were talking about turning. Like the one thing about that a lot of people don't get when they're just getting into hunting is like your movements. If you are moving like a sloth, it's hard for the deer to see you. The way that deer see is they see sudden movements. They're trained to see flashes and sudden movements, anything like a predator, would be doing, flying through the woods after them. But if you move like a sloth, like if you hear something behind you and you move like this, literally like this, don't go any faster. You can turn all the way back to see what's over there. And if you're wearing a hat like this, then that's not as good as if you're wearing a beanie, because the beanie is not going to look any different with the slow turn. But your hat, if you're wearing like a frontward like a hat like that, they can see that more. But still, if you're moving really really slow, you really rarely will have a deer pick you off if you're moving like a sloth. So any movement that you're doing, if you're going to go to grab your phone out of your pocket, move your arm and your hand like a sloth. Yeah. All of that stuff. And then if you got a deer that's, I had hardly any deer blow at me this year. Only a couple when I was walking in and walking out. But when they blow, then they've really picked you off as a threat. And they're alerting all the deer around you that there's a threat in the area. So nobody likes to hear when the deer blow. But I've had quite a few deer this year, and 3 or 4 bucks come in pretty close and look up into the tree, kind of knowing something was happening up there. But because once they look up in the tree, sit completely still. Don't even move like a sloth at that point. Just stay still as you can and don't look them in the eyes, because if you look them in the eyes, then they'll get a sense a lot of the time just from the eye contact, and then they'll take off. So I kind of look to a foot to the left or a foot to the right of their head, or look at their body, or just try not to look at them until you can tell with your peripheral that they've turned, and then you can look at them again and see what's going on. But staying completely still when they're really close, and then moving like a sloth any other time, and you won't spook. You're not going to spook deer unless they're directly in your wind. Or something happens. But so just a couple little pointers.
That's good to know. It's hard to keep your composure when there is a deer right there.
Yeah.
The impulse is to I really want to see it and turn quickly. So it's good.
And if there's any bit of wind, like their hearing, their hearing goes down quite a bit. When I first started hunting, I figured that they heard every single rustle of a leaf or something, but it's not. It's the movement that really will get them to pick you off. And the sounds, unless it's a metallic like clink on something that sounds foreign to the woods, a lot of the sounds they're not really registering it too much, as long as they're very subtle, a rustle of a leaf or something like that. But I've watching a hunting public video the other night too. This guy had a mature 12-point massive like Iowa buck that was only 60 yards away from him, and he was using his grunt call to try to get him to come in, and he was going as loud as he could with that call. It started low and soft, and the buck never turned and looked and didn't register, and then he was blowing that thing like a trombone, and the buck still didn't hear it, and he's only 60 yards away.
Wow.
Sometimes their hearing it's good for sure. They're prey. They've been prey for millions of years, and so they're tuned in to all that stuff. But I found that their sight and their smell is, those are what you got to be the most careful about. But don't be too afraid about the sounds that you're making.
It's interesting too, because in these suburban areas, there's almost always some sort of background noise going on.
That's true.
The Blue Hills is, I'm sitting there in this beautiful area, but there's the constant hum of I-93 and other roads, and there's a train that goes right by.
And the Blue Hills are used so much by hikers and bikers and all that stuff too, that I think the deer in there, they're used to living in proximity of recreational humans.
Yeah, definitely.
The spot where I killed my 9-pointer this year has got a pretty well used trail, and where I had a mountain biker drive almost right up to my stand a couple days ago. And in that stand, when the wind is right, I can smell, Thai food. Specifically, I smelled Thai food from somebody's house. They were hundreds of yards away, but I'm like, oh, they're having Thai food. So those deer will smell stuff from the neighborhoods. In these suburban areas, they're used to recreation. Going through there. If you're going into the most remote, very remote area, and it's low on foot traffic and stuff, those deer are probably going to be a little more skittish around scents and sounds, and stuff like that. It just stuff depends on where you are. But of course, you always want to take it all into consideration and not make noise, as much as you can, and do what you can there. But so how did you? What did you? Maybe another 10 minutes here or so, talk about how you prepared for this season. So you got a bow and you practiced, even though you live in a city, you practiced, you got 12, 15 yards, you got good with your bow, and that's good. That's like step number one. Be a good shot, be confident in your shot. How did you find out the gear to get, the type of stand to buy? Did you practice your stand? Talk about the stuff that you did to prep for the season.
Yeah, sure. The bow was definitely I think that was the first thing I bought, because that was early on, and I knew I wanted to have a lot of time to practice with that.
What'd you get for a bow?
It's a Matthews. So I just went to an archery shop and tried a few different bows, and that was the one I got. Just kind of felt the best.
And if you go to an archery shop, they all really want to help you out. They're super helpful for a new archer.
Yeah, they were great. They have the little indoor range was right there, so it was easy to try a bunch of different
what shop
things.
Did you go to? You remember?
Reedy's in Middleborough.
Oh yeah, great. I've heard so many good things about Reedy's. I've never been still, but
so I was really drawn to them. I found their website, and every person that works there's a picture of them with a deer or a bear. So I was like, that's the spot I want to go. So they hooked me up there and got me set up with the bow and the release and the target. And then I'd say, I talked to my brother a lot about gear and what are the essentials. I use some online resources. I think it's Bowhunter 360. I've found was a really good website with a lot of kind of good short videos and write-ups on gear and prep and all that sort of stuff. But I just kind of built a list of the essentials that I needed, like the clothes and the field dressing knives, a good backpack, good pair of boots.
Yeah.
And I just kind of decided what's the bare minimum that I need to get out on a hunt. And then of course the stand, that was another recommendation from my brother, but I also just knew I wanted a lightweight stand and one that I would be able to move around a lot, because I don't have any private land access. So I knew I was pretty much going to be setting it up and taking it down until I figured out this Blue Hills situation where I do leave it up. So that I was kind of quickly found out about the Lone Wolf setup. I did practice with it at just kind of an open space park near my house. That wasn't really, it's kind of not a very popular area. So I just kind of took it out there a few times, and this is before hunting season started, but I knew I had to figure out how to use the thing.
Yeah. Did you get a rangefinder or anything?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're important.
Yeah, rangefinder and binocs. Yeah, those were two. Yeah, the glass was very important.
Yeah, my binocs broke. I haven't been using them for the last 3 weeks. This part of the eyepiece came off.
Bummer.
They're Vortex too. Vortex is really nice. And they have a lifetime warranty. You don't even need a receipt. They just want me to send it back to them.
Oh, nice. So
and then they'll repair it or give me a new one, whatever they determine, and send it back. But it's going to take 6 weeks. So the rest of this year, I'm not hunting with binocs. But it's all right. I'm not going to shoot anything, outside of what I know I want to harvest anyway, that I can see with the naked eye. Yeah. So
I found the rangefinder I've used that a lot more than the binocs.
I've been using that, as a binoc substitute a couple times. And it works.
So yeah, I mean that's kind of first thing I do when I sit down in my stand is just kind of range a bunch of things that are in the area and get an idea of how
find a 20-yard tree and a 30-yard tree. That's what I try to do.
Yep.
At least that, a couple 20-yard trees. And once you find one, you can kind of see, draw a mental circle, with the radius from that tree around you, and get the other trees and try to find a 20-yard perimeter. And yeah, then if you get into a situation where a deer's coming in fast and you don't have time to, range again, I always try to. If he's coming in and you can figure out, you got time he gets behind a tree and he's just kind of taking his time, try to range him again and range the spot where you see he's going to. But if you can remember your perimeters, then you're good there too.
Yeah.
Did you, so you listened to our podcast too. How'd you hear about us? Was it on Boston Bowhunter or?
Someone asked me that earlier today. I told them I was coming to meet with you, and I'm having a hard time remembering how I found the podcast. It may have been, I'm on this Facebook group, Mass Hunting.
Yeah, it could have been there.
I think maybe I saw something on it there.
Are you in the Boston Bowhunter Facebook group?
No.
Oh, you should join that one too. That's it's exactly like what you are. Live in Boston. Bunch of guys started. They all live in the suburbs, and it's a good community and a lot of good advice on there. Really active. I also use Bowsite. Bowsite.com. There's a Massachusetts regional forum in there, and that's very helpul. I mean, that's where I got all my information when I first got into bow hunting.
Yeah, so I mean, it's been listening to your podcast and the Wired to Hunt podcast has been great. Just listening to conversations, people talking about their strategies, their particular hunts. I just pick up so much that way, and then having some friends and my brother, and I've connected with a guy through Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. They have a mentorship program, and it's been a little difficult. Like, we haven't met each other in person, which probably would have been different in another year. But
does he live in Massachusetts?
Yeah, he's in this area.
That's good.
But he's been a really helpful resource. Just I've been able to reach out to him with any question. I mean, that's one thing I knew was going to be really important, is meeting people with experience, kind of mentors and just other friends. And it's been a little bit of a challenge this year to like, to get together with people.
For sure. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But the great thing about hunting is, you can do it socially distanced. My hunting buddies will go into the woods. We're not even riding in the same car, but you're pretty socially distanced out in the woods, and it's you're in the open air and stuff. It's it's a great, and I think that's why there's a lot of new. There's definitely an uptick in hunters this year, and COVID and being cooped up in the house is one of the reasons. And but yeah, it's a great activity, and being a part of the community, relying on the community, and if you ingrain yourself in the community, the hunting community, whether it is wherever you want to find it, back online, on the bow site, Ryini's is, I heard, has got a great community there. People that just go shoot. They'll do some events in a year where there's no COVID stuff. They'll have outdoor events and networking. And dude, you want to shoot me a text? You have any questions? Like, you can always do that. Or an email or whatever.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Just keep at it. You got a 6-pointer your first year out. That's awesome. So did my buddy Scotland this year, and I think a 6-pointer is a perfect first deer too.
It seemed like
it's a great buck,
definitely.
And you still have room to get bigger bucks.
Yep.
Some guys will shoot a 150 incher on their first one with some luck, and then chase that their whole life and never get there again. And I'm happy for you, and I'm glad there's a new hunter, and I hope you enjoy it and keep learning and stick with it.
Thank you.
Introduce other people to it.
Certainly will. Yeah. It's been a thrilling first year, and got a few weeks left.
Yeah. So. I was gonna say. So you're gonna go out? You're still going out?
Monday to Thursday this week is the end of Blue Hills season. So.
You can tag more than one deer in the Blue Hills?
Yep.
That's great.
Yep. So
cool.
You can use your 2 antlered tags, and they have separate antlerless tags, but you could pretty much get.
That's great. So you can hunt the whole season there as long as they have it open.
Yep.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yep.
So are you going to the same spot, or have you?
I moved my stand yesterday. Found what seems to be another really good spot. So I've got high hopes for this week.
Awesome. You going tomorrow?
Yeah, I think in the morning. It's supposed to rain a ton tomorrow.
And be
tomorrow
morning will be good.
Stormy, but I was thinking in the morning.
The deer know the rain's coming, and they'll get up and move and feed in the morning because they know by the barometric pressure changes and stuff that it's going to be raining, and they don't like to be up in the rain. They still get up sometimes. They just won't move as far.
Yeah.
So they'll know, and then tomorrow morning they'll be up and feeding and doing all the stuff.
That's so cool that they
all their
can
errands.
sense that, and they know that's happening.
Yeah,
it's really awesome.
Yeah, get up in the morning, get out there before daylight, and sit till 10 or so. I think it's going to start raining noon or 1. Yeah, get out there and give her hell, and let me know if you get something.
Yeah, will do.
All right, thanks for coming, buddy.
Yeah, man, thanks for having me.
Yep. Thanks for listening to the Hunt Suburbia podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. We're going to release an episode every single Sunday throughout the season, throughout the entire year, and we will possibly be releasing some bonus episodes here and there throughout the week as people, come in freshly off a bow kill and tell their stories. We hope that happens throughout the season. There might be weeks where you get 2 or 3 bonus episodes. You might not get one for a couple of weeks, but there will be some bonus episodes. But you can count on us every single Sunday to have a new interview on throughout the season. Once again, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week. Big bucks I've been dreaming often, every night till I'm in a coffin. Vermont woods to the burbs of Boston, I'm looking for a tree to get lost in. Crisp mornings, little dust in the snow. Quality time, just me and my bow. Fall evenings, I know just where to go for some quality times for me and my bow. It's just me and my